The penthouse fundraiser buzzed with a different energy tonight. Her laugh cut through the champagne clinks and corporate small talk before I even saw her face. I was trapped in conversation with Mr. Harland, our most valuable client, his hand heavy on my shoulder as he discussed quarterly projections. One wrong move here could cost the firm millions. But then my eyes found her across the room. She stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights creating a halo around her dark hair. The air thickened immediately. I should have looked away. Instead, I let myself feel the pull. I arrived at the Grand Tower's 58th floor precisely at 7. My role tonight, crystal clear. Secure Harland Industries' continued partnership. The city's elite circulated in tailored suits and couture gowns, their conversations a low hum of power and money. I smoothed my emerald silk dress, a calculated choice, professional but memorable, and accepted a champagne flute from a passing server. That's when I first saw her. She commanded the room without effort, her presence magnetic in a way that had nothing to do with volume or performance. She wore a sharp navy blazer over tailored trousers, her dark hair pulled back in a style that emphasized the elegant line of her neck. As she turned to greet someone, the light caught her hair, creating momentary amber highlights that made my breath catch. Her perfume reached me across the crowded space, something woody and complex, cedar and bergamot that spoke of confidence rather than ornament. I stood rooted beside Mr. Harland, my professional anchor, while every instinct screamed to cross the room. He was mid-sentence about acquisition strategies, his voice a steady drone I normally tracked with precision. Tonight, his words dissolved into static. "Elena," he said, following my gaze. "Impressive woman, that one. VP of Operations at Meridian Group. She could teach you a thing or two about client retention." The introduction was my opening, my chance to approach her under the guise of professional networking. Instead, I found myself calculating the danger. In this room, everyone watched. A junior partner pursuing a VP from a rival firm during a client event? Career suicide decorated as ambition. Yet the connection pulled taut between us like a complex surgical suture, delicate, precise, and impossible to ignore without causing damage. I recognized the symptoms from my own training: elevated heart rate, heightened awareness, the way my palm ached to feel the pressure of her handshake. All unprofessional, all undeniable. Mr. Harland's grip on my elbow tightened. "Come, I'll introduce you. Meridian might be a future partner." And just like that, the choice was made for me. I followed him across the marble floor, each step both victory and surrender. She saw us approaching, her expression shifting from professional warmth to something more charged. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt the impact physically, a current that ran from my chest to my fingertips. "Elena Vasquez," Mr. Harland announced. "Allow me to introduce our rising star, Dr. Catherine Reed. She heads our analytics division." Dr. Reed. Her voice was lower than I'd imagined, textured with authority and something else I couldn't name. She extended her hand, and when our palms met, the contact lasted 1 second too long for propriety. Her grip was firm, confident, and I felt the calluses on her fingers. Someone who worked with her hands, who built things. "Miss Vasquez," I managed, grateful for years of professional training that kept my voice steady. "Meridian's growth has been remarkable." "Catherine," she corrected, her thumb brushing the back of my hand in a movement so subtle it might have been accidental. "And please, call me Elena. We're all colleagues here." The word colleagues hung between us, heavy with meaning we both understood was false. Mr. Harland beamed, oblivious to the undercurrent pulling us under. "Excellent. I love seeing young talent connect. Catherine, why don't you show Elena our projected growth models? I need to speak with the mayor briefly." And then he was gone, leaving us alone in a room full of people. The silence stretched, charged, and deliberate. Elena released my hands slowly, her fingers trailing against my palm in a way that made my breath catch. Around us, the party continued. Champagne poured, deals discussed, careers advanced. But in our small pocket of space, the professional world fell away. "I've been watching you since you arrived," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That dress makes it difficult to concentrate on quarterly reports. The compliment, so direct and personal, should have shocked me. Instead, it landed like truth. You make it difficult to remember why I'm here, I admitted, the words escaping before my professional filter could stop them. Her smile was slow, knowing. And why are you here, Catherine? I could have given her the answer Mr. Harland expected. Partnerships, growth, strategic alliances, but her gaze demanded honesty. I'm starting to question that myself. Good, she said, and the word felt like permission. Question everything, starting with why we've been circling each other for 6 months without speaking. The revelation stunned me. You've noticed. Since the spring conference, you presented on predictive analytics. I sat in the back row and wondered what your voice would sound like saying my name instead of regression models. My pulse hammered against the silk of my dress. Around us, the fundraiser continued its orchestrated dance of power and money. But Elena and I had stepped outside those boundaries, into territory that had no professional map. Ms. Vasquez, I began, trying to reclaim formality. Elena, she corrected again, stepping closer. The scent of her perfume intensified, wrapping around me like a promise. And I think it's time we stopped pretending this is about business development. I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already moving away, her parting words hanging in the air between us. Meet me on the balcony in 10 minutes. There's a private conversation we need to have about client strategy. The excuse was transparent, ridiculous. But as I watched her disappear into the crowd, her dark hair catching the light one final time, I knew I would be there. Professional consequences be damned. The 10 minutes stretched like taffy pulled too thin. I stood at the bar, nursing a champagne I couldn't taste, counting seconds. Each time I looked up, I caught Elena watching me from across the room, her gaze steady and unflinching. The message was clear. Don't back out now. At minute 8, I excused myself from a conversation about market trends and walked toward the balcony doors. My heels clicked against the marble with a rhythm that matched my hammering heart. I passed colleagues, past clients, past my entire career balanced on the edge of this moment. The balcony was empty when I stepped into the cool night air. City lights spread below us like scattered diamonds, and the sounds of the party muffled. Elena stood at the railing, her back to me, her posture relaxed, but her knuckles white where she gripped the metal. You came, she said without turning. I almost didn't. She turned, and the vulnerability in her expression nearly undid me. I'm glad you did. The space between us crackled with unspoken words. I moved closer, close enough to see the way her eyes searched mine. You clean up well for someone who lives in spreadsheets, she said, her voice soft with teasing. I laughed, surprised by the genuine sound. And you make power suits look dangerously distracting. Her smile was slow, knowing. If we weren't colleagues, I'd ask what you're doing after this. If we weren't colleagues, I'd have an answer. The banter was a dance, each step testing the floorboards of this new territory. Elena leaned against the railing, her posture open, but her eyes assessing. You make me nervous, Catherine, in the best possible way. Good, I admitted, because you make me feel alive in a way that terrifies me. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. Elena's expression shifted from playful to serious. Can I say something completely unprofessional? My hesitation was real. Only if we establish some ground rules first. Rule 1, she said immediately. Complete honesty. No more pretending this is about quarterly reports. Rule 2, I countered. Mutual protection. Whatever this is, we keep it private until we figure out the professional implications. Rule 3, she added, her voice softer now. Either of us can pause this at any moment. No questions asked. I stepped closer, closing the distance between us. I can work with rules. I can't work with silence anymore. Her laugh was breathy, relieved. I've been silent for 6 months, Catherine, watching you from conference rooms, from networking events, from across crowded rooms just like this one. I'm done performing for an audience that doesn't even know what they're watching. The confession struck me silent. 6 months. She'd felt this pull, this impossible gravity for half a year while I'd convinced myself I was imagining the connection. Mr. Harland asked about our special rapport earlier, I admitted. He said we had good chemistry for collaboration. Elena's eyes darkened. The irony is that he's right, just not in the way he thinks. We do have chemistry. We have enough to light this entire building on fire. She reached for my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. The touch was deliberate, no longer accidental brushes or professional handshakes. This was choice. "I'm done pretending we're just colleagues," she said, her voice low and certain. "I'm done pretending I don't think about you when I'm supposed to be analyzing profit margins. I'm done pretending that every time you present in a meeting, I'm not watching the way your mind works more than the slides." The words were a floodgate opening, and I felt myself drowning in the honesty. "What do we do now?" "Now," she said, squeezing my hand. "We figure this out one day at a time, but we figure it out together. Tomorrow, coffee at the place downtown. Very public, very careful. We'll create a cover story about the Harlan-Meridian merger possibilities. We'll establish a timeline for how this unfolds. We'll protect each other." Her practicality grounded me, even as my heart raced. "And tonight?" "Tonight," Elena said, stepping closer until our foreheads nearly touched. "We give ourselves permission to feel this, just for these few minutes on this balcony. Then we walk back inside, separately, and perform the roles everyone expects. But we'll know the truth." "The truth," I whispered, my free hand finding her waist, "is that we were never just colleagues. We were always this." The kiss that followed wasn't a question. It was a confirmation, soft and certain, the period at the end of a sentence we'd been writing for 6 months. When we broke apart, the city lights seemed brighter, the night air clearer. 10 minutes, Elena reminded me, though neither of us moved. Then we go back to being professionals. 10 minutes, I agreed, counting the seconds until we could be honest again. The 10 minutes ended too soon. Elena squeezed my hand once, a silent promise, then stepped back. Her professional mask slid back into place so seamlessly, I questioned if the balcony moment had happened at all. "Dr. Reed," she said, her voice cool and distant. "Thank you for the strategic insights on the Harland account." I blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. "Of course, Ms. Vasquez. Meridian's merger potential is fascinating." She turned and walked back inside, her posture perfect, her stride confident. I counted to 30, watching the city lights below, then followed. The transition from intimate confession to professional performance felt like stepping through a portal into another dimension. Inside, the party continued unchanged. Mr. Harlan stood near the bar, his attention on the mayor. Elena had positioned herself across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of investors. From a distance, we were simply two colleagues who'd discussed business, but we knew the truth. The slow game began without conscious decision. I found myself moving toward the bar just as Elena excused herself from her conversation. Our paths crossed near the champagne fountain, a seemingly random intersection in a crowded room. "Dr. Reed," she said, her voice formal, but her eyes speaking another language entirely. "I was just thinking about your point on client retention." "Were you?" I asked, accepting a fresh flute from a server. "And which point was that?" "The one about personal connection being more valuable than any algorithm." She took a sip, her gaze never leaving mine. I find myself agreeing more than expected. Around us, people laughed and networked and advanced their careers. But in our small bubble, the professional world fell away. I leaned closer, ostensibly to hear her over the music, but really to feel the charge of proximity. Personal connection is risky in our line of work. People talk. "Let them talk," Elena murmured, her breath warm against my ear. "We're discussing merger strategy." Very professional. The lie was so transparent, it became its own truth. We were performing for an audience that didn't know it was watching. Every near touch, every sustained glance, every accidental brush of shoulders became part of the choreography. When the presentation began, a series of speeches about the charity we were supporting, Elena and I found ourselves seated at the same round table. Not together, of course. That would be too obvious. She sat 2 chairs away, positioned perfectly in my peripheral vision. The speaker droned on about fiscal responsibility. Elena caught my eye across the table, her expression carefully neutral. But her fingers, resting on the white tablecloth, tapped out a rhythm. 3 quick taps, a pause, 3 more. Morse code for SOS, or perhaps just a nervous habit. I watched those fingers, remembering the calluses I'd felt during our handshake, the way they'd traced patterns on my palm during the balcony kiss. When the lights dimmed for a video presentation, the darkness became our ally. I felt, rather than saw, Elena shift slightly, her chair inching closer to mine. Her hand found my knee under the table, a brief, shocking contact that sent current through my carefully composed exterior. I didn't react outwardly, but my breath caught. Her touch lingered 3 seconds, then withdrew, leaving only the memory of pressure. The dance floor opened after the speeches. Couples moved together under the guise of networking, their bodies pressed close while discussing quarterly earnings. Elena stood, extending her hand to me with perfect professional courtesy. "Dr. Reed, I believe we should demonstrate proper client relations. Would you honor me with a dance?" The excuse was laughable, the formality absurd. But I placed my hand in hers, felt the familiar calluses, the confident grip. She led me to the floor, her hand settling on my back in a position that was technically proper, but felt impossibly intimate. The band played something slow, bluesy. We moved together, maintaining the perfect distance for colleagues, but her thumb traced circles on my shoulder blade. Her breath was warm against my temple when she leaned in to speak. "You're trembling," she observed softly. "I'm not used to dancing in front of clients." "Liar," she whispered, her lips nearly brushing my ear. "You're trembling because you're thinking about the balcony, about what happens after this party ends." I was. I'd been thinking about nothing else for the past hour, counting minutes until we could leave, until the performance could end and reality could resume. Am I that transparent? Only to me. Her hand pressed more firmly against my back, guiding our movement. "I've studied you for 6 months, Catherine. I know the way you hold yourself when you're nervous, the way your eyes dart to the exits when you feel trapped, the way your breathing changes when you're lying. And what am I lying about now? That you can walk away from this tomorrow and pretend it never happened." She pulled back slightly, her gaze searching mine. "Tell me I'm wrong." I couldn't. The truth was a physical weight in my chest, pressing against my ribs with every breath. "You're not wrong." The song ended. We separated, exchanging polite nods while our eyes promised other things. I returned to my table, accepted congratulations from colleagues on my impressive networking. Elena moved through the crowd, her professional mask flawless, but every time our eyes met across the room, the charge reignited. Mr. Harland approached me near the bar, his expression pleased. "Excellent work tonight, Catherine. I saw you dancing with Elena Vasquez. Building bridges with Meridian could be strategic for us." "Strategic," I repeated, my voice hollow. "She's impressive, isn't she? Sharp mind, excellent instincts. The 2 of you together could be formidable." He clapped my shoulder, oblivious to the irony. "Keep cultivating that rapport." I smiled, nodded, performed the role of dutiful junior partner, but my gaze kept drifting to Elena, now engaged in conversation near the windows. She glanced up, caught my eye, and the message was clear. "This is exhausting." It was. The performance required constant vigilance. Every smile, every gesture, every word had to pass through 2 filters: professional appropriateness and hidden truth. My face ached from the effort. My mind spun from the dual consciousness of public persona and private reality. The moment came during a lull in the music. Elena passed behind me, her path crossing mine as if by chance. But her whisper was deliberate, her breath warm against my ear. "Meet me on the balcony in 5 minutes. There's a private conversation we need to have about client strategy." The excuse was transparent, ridiculous. But I felt the truth beneath it. I'm done performing. I need to be real with you, even if only for a few minutes. I watched her walk toward the balcony doors, her posture perfect, her stride confident. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. We both knew I'd follow. I counted down the minutes, enduring small talk about market trends and fiscal projections. When the 5th minute arrived, I excused myself, my heart hammering against my silk dress. The walk to the balcony felt endless, each step both victory and surrender. She waited there, as I knew she would, her back to the city lights. When she turned, the vulnerability in her expression nearly undid me. "You came." "I always will," I said, the words escaping before I could filter them. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. Elena stepped closer, her hand finding mine. "Good," she whispered, "because I'm not sure I could survive another hour of pretending." The balcony doors closed behind me, sealing us in our private world. The performance was over. For these few minutes, we could simply be ourselves. And in that honesty, I found the courage to finally admit what I'd been denying for 6 months. Whatever this was, it was already too big to contain. The balcony air felt different after the kiss, charged but lighter, as if we'd exhaled 6 months of held breath. Elena released my hand slowly, her fingers trailing against my palm in a way that made my skin hum. She stepped back, creating space that felt both necessary and cruel. "So," she said, her voice shifting from vulnerable to teasing, "Dr. Catherine Reed, spreadsheet warrior. Tell me, do you always wear silk dresses that make it impossible to concentrate on quarterly reports?" I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Only when I'm trying to secure $1 million partnerships. You? Do you always wear power suits that should come with a warning label?" "Warning label?" She leaned against the railing, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp with amusement. "Danger. May cause career-threatening distractions." Elena laughed, low and genuine. "I'll have my tailor add that to the next one. Though, I suppose it's only fair. Your presentation on predictive analytics last spring had me so distracted, I forgot to take notes." "You were there?" "I thought Meridian sent their CFO." "Meridian did. I attended unofficially. Sat in the back row and wondered what your voice would sound like saying my name instead of regression models." The confession landed like a feather on raw skin, gentle but felt. "Elena," I said, testing the sound. "Elena Vasquez, VP of Operations, Professional Distraction." She stepped closer, her expression shifting from playful to something more serious. "Say it again." "Elena." "Again." "Elena." The third time felt like a promise. "See?" Her thumb brushed my cheekbone, a feather-light touch that made me shiver. Even better than I imagined. I reached for her hand, stopping the teasing before it overwhelmed my already frayed composure. "We should probably discuss logistics before we forget why we're here." "Why are we here?" She tilted her head, the city lights catching in her dark eyes. "Remind me. Because I seem to have forgotten everything except the way you look in emerald silk." "Client strategy," I reminded her, but my voice lacked conviction. "Harlan Meridian merger possibilities." Very professional. "Right." She didn't step back. Very professional. So professional that I'm about to suggest something completely inappropriate. "Elena, Catherine," she interrupted, her voice dropping lower. "If we weren't colleagues, I'd ask what you're doing after this party ends. And I'd hope the answer involves somewhere private, somewhere without clients watching, somewhere we could stop performing." My breath caught. If we weren't colleagues, I'd say yes. But we are colleagues, which means we need rules. "Rules," she repeated, testing the word like it tasted strange. "You want to make rules for something that feels this inevitable?" "I want to make rules so this doesn't destroy both our careers before it has a chance to become whatever it's becoming." Elena studied me for a long moment, her expression shifting from teasing to thoughtful. "Okay, Dr. Reed, rule maker. What are your terms?" "Rule 1, I said, stepping closer despite my own rules. Complete honesty. No more pretending this is about quarterly reports." "Agreed. Though I reserve the right to tease you about spreadsheets." "Rule 2, I continued, trying to maintain focus while her thumb traced circles on my palm. "Mutual protection. Whatever this is, we keep it private until we figure out the professional implications. No public displays, no office gossip, no social media posts. Even if I want to show off how good we look together, especially then. Fine, she pretended to pout, but I'm keeping the photo from tonight, just for me. Rule 3, I said, my voice softening. Either of us can pause this at any moment. No questions asked, no pressure, no expectations, no guilt. Elena's teasing smile faded. You think I'd pressure you? I think we're both adults who know what we want. I also think we're both smart enough to know that wanting something doesn't mean we're ready for it. She stepped closer, her forehead nearly touching mine. Fair enough. But I reserve the right to try to change your mind with charming banter and strategic compliments. Strategic compliments? Like telling you that emerald silk should be mandatory in all board meetings. Or that your analytical mind is the sexiest thing I've encountered in a decade of corporate warfare. I laughed, the sound surprising both of us. That's your strategy? Flattery? Is it working? Unfortunately, yes. Good. She pulled back slightly, her expression shifting from playful to something more vulnerable. Because I've been trying to find the right words for 6 months, Catherine, and all the spreadsheets in the world couldn't help me figure out how to tell my professional rival that I think about her when I'm supposed to be analyzing profit margins. Rival? I raised an eyebrow. I thought we were potential partners. Oh, we're going to be partners, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that sent shivers down my spine. But first, we need to survive being rivals who can't stop thinking about each other. The balcony door opened behind us, and we sprang apart like guilty teenagers. A couple stepped outside, their conversation about real estate developments creating a buffer of normalcy. Elena and I exchanged a glance, professional masks sliding back into place with practiced ease. Dr. Reed, she said, her voice cool and distant. Thank you for the strategic insights on the Harland account. Meridian's merger potential is fascinating. Ms. Vasquez, I replied, matching her tone. I look forward to continuing this conversation tomorrow. Perhaps over coffee? Tomorrow, she agreed, her eyes promising other things. Very professional coffee. The couple moved to the opposite end of the balcony, giving us space to retreat. Elena squeezed my hand once, a silent promise, then released it. She walked back inside first, her posture perfect, her stride confident. I counted to 30, watching the city lights below, then followed. The transition from intimate confession to professional performance felt like stepping through a portal into another dimension. Inside, the party continued unchanged. Mr. Harland stood near the bar, his attention on the mayor. Elena had positioned herself across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of investors. From a distance, we were simply two colleagues who'd discussed business, but we knew the truth. And as I accepted a fresh champagne from a passing server, I caught Elena's eye across the crowded room. She raised her glass in a subtle toast, her expression unreadable to anyone watching. But I knew that look. It said, 10 minutes on a balcony changed everything. Now we just have to figure out how to survive the fallout. I raised my glass in return, a silent agreement. One day at a time. But we figure it out together. The performance continued, but the teasing had only just begun. The car ride home from the fundraiser felt like crossing into another dimension. Elena drove, her hands steady on the wheel, but the silence between us crackled with everything we hadn't said in front of colleagues. City lights blurred past my window, and I counted breaths, trying to ground myself in reality. Can I say something completely unprofessional? Elena's voice cut through the quiet, serious now, all teasing gone. I hesitated, the weight of the evening pressing against my chest. You realize we're both risking everything, right? Mr. Harland already commented on our special rapport. If anyone saw us on that balcony, they didn't. She glanced at me, her expression vulnerable in the dashboard glow. But you're right, the risk is real, which is why we need rules. Rules, I repeated, the word feeling like both prison and sanctuary. Rule 1, she said, her voice firm. Complete honesty. No more pretending this is about quarterly reports or merger strategy. If I tell you I'm thinking about you during a board meeting, I need to know you won't pretend it's inappropriate. I watched her profile, the determined set of her jaw. And if I'm thinking about you during a client presentation, then tell me. She reached across the center console, her hand finding mine. I can't work with silence anymore, Catherine. 6 months of watching you from across conference rooms, of wondering if you felt this too. It's exhausting. Her admission landed like a confession. Rule 2, I said, squeezing her hand. Mutual protection. Whatever this is, we keep it private until we figure out the professional implications. No public displays, no office gossip, no social media posts. Even if I want to show off how good we look together, especially then. I brought her hand to my lips, a brief, soft kiss against her knuckles. We protect each other first. That means being strategic about when and where we're honest. She nodded, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. Rule 3. Either of us can pause this at any moment. No questions asked. No guilt, no pressure, no career suicide if one of us needs to step back. Agreed. I studied our intertwined fingers, the way her calluses felt against my skin. But I need to add something. Complete honesty means if you're having doubts, you tell me immediately, not after you've stewed in them for weeks. Fair. She pulled into my driveway, the engine idling. And I need you to promise something else. No more performing for an audience that doesn't know they're watching. When we're alone, we're real. No corporate masks, no strategic conversations. I turned to face her, the dome light casting shadows across her features. I can work with rules, I said softly. I can't work with silence anymore. Her smile was sad, relieved. I've been silent for 6 months, Catherine. Watching you from conference rooms, from networking events, from across crowded rooms just like tonight. I'm done performing for an audience that doesn't even know what they're watching. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. I reached for her hand again, feeling the weight of what we were building. Then we need a signal, I said. Something that means I need to be real with you right now, even when we're surrounded by colleagues. A signal, she repeated, considering. Like what? Like this. I traced a small circle on the back of her hand with my thumb. 3 circles, slow, means I need 5 minutes of honesty. 3 circles, she agreed, her voice soft. And if I trace 1 circle back, it means I hear you. We'll find time. 2 circles means not now, but soon. And no circles means we're in performance mode, she finished. I can work with that. We sat in the dark car, the engine running, neither of us moving to leave. The rules we'd established felt like both armor and prison, protecting us while constraining us. But they also gave us permission to be honest in a world that demanded performance. One more rule, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. When we're alone, you call me Elena. Not Ms. Vasquez, not VP, just Elena. Elena, I said, testing the sound in the quiet car. Again. Elena. Again. I leaned closer, my forehead nearly touching hers. Elena, I whispered, and the name felt like a prayer. The rules were clear. The timeline was set. The cover story was solid. And none of it mattered, because I'd already fallen for the woman I was supposed to be protecting myself from. She kissed me then, soft and certain, the period at the end of a sentence we'd been writing for 6 months. When we broke apart, the dome light timed out, plunging us into darkness. Tomorrow, she reminded me, though neither of us moved. Coffee at the place downtown. Very public, very careful. Tomorrow, I agreed, counting the seconds until we could be honest again. The rules were simple. The rules were necessary. The rules might save us both. But as I watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the night, I knew the truth. Rules couldn't protect us from what was already happening. We were past the point of safe boundaries. We were past the point of professional distance. We were simply past the point of no return. The coffee shop Elena chose was tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing boutique on Brand Boulevard. I arrived 10 minutes early, my nerves making punctuality impossible. The December air carried hints of rain, and I'd changed clothes 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a cream sweater. Elena appeared in the doorway wearing a burgundy jacket over black leggings, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. My pulse jumped as our eyes met across the crowded cafe. "You beat me here," she said, sliding into the chair opposite mine. "I was hoping to buy your coffee and make a good second impression." "Your first impression was pretty memorable," I replied, then immediately regretted the reference to last night's balcony kiss. But Elena smiled, ordering a vanilla latte when the server approached. "Good memorable or bad memorable?" "Complicated memorable," I admitted, wrapping my hands around my cappuccino mug. We talked for 2 hours, conversation flowing like we'd known each other for years. Elena shared her childhood in Colorado, how a skiing accident ended her Olympic dreams and led her to corporate strategy. I found myself opening up about my divorce 5 years ago, the loneliness of building a practice from nothing. "You never remarried?" Elena asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "Dating at 47 isn't exactly easy," I laughed. "Most men my age want someone younger, and younger men want someone less complicated." "What about women?" The question hung between us like a challenge. I stared into my coffee, aware this conversation was heading somewhere I'd never openly traveled. "I've wondered," I said quietly. "Especially recently." Elena reached across the table, her fingertips brushing mine. "Wondering isn't the same as knowing." "No, it's not." I looked up, meeting her gaze. "How long have you known?" "Since college. My roommate and I were just friends until suddenly we weren't." Her thumb traced across my knuckles. "It ended badly, but it taught me who I am." Rain began pattering against the windows, creating an intimate cocoon around our table. The cafe crowd thinned as afternoon shifted toward evening. "We should probably go," I said reluctantly. "Probably," Elena agreed, but neither of us moved. The downpour intensified as we finally ventured outside. We ran toward my car, laughing as rain soaked through our jackets. I fumbled with my keys while Elena pressed close behind me, both of us breathless and dripping. "My apartment is 6 blocks away," she offered. "We could wait out the storm." Something in her tone suggested she wasn't just talking about weather. I turned in the narrow space between my car and hers, suddenly aware of how close she stood. Water droplets clung to her eyelashes, and I had an overwhelming urge to brush them away. "Elena," I whispered, unsure what I was about to say. She stepped closer, eliminating the last inches between us. "I know this is new for you. We can take it slow." Her hands found my waist, and I realized I was trembling, though not from cold. The parking lot was empty, rain creating a curtain of privacy around us. "I've never felt this way about anyone," I confessed. "Man or woman." "That's not about gender," she said softly. "That's about connection." When she kissed me this time, it was different from last night's impulsive moment. This was deliberate, questioning, giving me space to respond or retreat. I chose to respond, my arms circling her neck as I kissed back with months of suppressed longing. The rain soaked us completely, but neither of us cared. I felt alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible, every nerve ending awakened by her touch. "Come home with me," Elena whispered against my lips. I pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes through the rain. "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I," she admitted. "Not with someone like you. But I know I want to find out." I nodded, too overwhelmed for words. Following her taillights through Glendale's rain-slicked streets, I realized my carefully controlled life was about to change forever. The thought should have terrified me, but instead, I felt nothing but anticipation for whatever came next. 3 weeks passed before Elena asked me on our first official date. The invitation came during a chance encounter at the grocery store, both of us reaching for the same bottle of wine. "Dinner Friday?" she asked, her smile nervous in a way I'd never seen before. "There's this Italian place downtown that's supposed to be incredible." I accepted immediately, surprising myself with my eagerness. The days between felt endless, filled with second-guessing my outfit choices and wondering what this step meant for us. Rosario's restaurant occupied a converted Victorian house, intimate tables scattered through candlelit rooms. Elena had reserved a corner table away from the main dining area. She wore a midnight blue dress that made her eyes look impossibly bright. "You look beautiful," she said as I sat down, her voice soft with genuine appreciation. "So do you." The words felt inadequate. She looked stunning, but more than that, she looked happy to be here, with me. We ordered wine and fell into easy conversation, though an undercurrent of anticipation charged every exchange. When Elena reached across the table to brush a strand of hair from my face, I felt that familiar flutter in my chest. "I have a confession," she said as our entree arrived. "I've wanted to ask you out since that first coffee." "What took you so long?" "I was waiting for you to catch up," she replied, eyes twinkling. "You needed time to understand what this was." "And what is this?" Elena set down her fork, considering her words carefully. "Something I've never experienced before. Usually, attraction is immediate and simple. This is deeper." Her honesty made my heart race. "I feel the same way. It scares me." "Good scared? Or bad scared?" "Both," I admitted, and she laughed, understanding perfectly. After dinner, we walked through downtown Glendale, past shops closing for the evening and couples strolling hand in hand. When we reached the fountain in Central Park, Elena stopped suddenly. "Dance with me," she said, extending her hand. "There's no music." "Sure there is." She pulled me into her arms, and we swayed to the sound of water cascading over stone. "Can you hear it?" I could hear everything. The fountain, distant traffic, my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. When Elena tilted my chin up, I knew she was going to kiss me. And this time, I was ready. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deeper as I responded. Her hands tangled in my hair, and I pressed closer, amazed by how perfectly we fit together. "Come back to my place," I whispered against her lips, the invitation tumbling out before I could overthink it. Elena's eyes searched mine. "Are you sure?" "No," I said honestly, "but I want to find out." My house felt different with Elena in it, smaller somehow, more intimate. I poured wine with shaking hands while she admired the artwork on my living room walls. "You have beautiful taste," she said, running her fingers over a ceramic vase on the mantel. "Thank you." I handed her a glass, our fingers brushing in the exchange. "I'm not very good at this part." "What part?" "The part where I invite someone home and actually know what to do next." Elena cupped my face in her hands, her thumbs tracing my cheekbones. "We don't have to do anything. Accept what feels right." When she kissed me this time, it was without hesitation, and I responded with equal certainty. Wine forgotten, we found ourselves on my couch, her body warm against mine as kisses deepened into something more urgent. Her touch was reverent, patient, awakening responses I'd never known I possessed. Time seemed suspended as we explored this new intimacy. Every caress taught me something about myself I'd never understood. The connection between us transcended physical attraction, becoming something profound and transformative that left us both breathless and changed. Later, wrapped in each other's arms on the couch, I traced lazy patterns on her shoulder while she played with my hair. "No regrets?" she asked softly. "None," I replied, meaning it completely. "Only that we waited so long," she murmured against my temple. "I was waiting for you to catch up." Outside, Glendale slept peacefully. But inside my house, everything had shifted forever. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Elegant cream cardstock that made my coffee taste bitter. Dr. Sarah Manning, my medical school roommate, was getting married in Santa Barbara. The save the date had mentioned +1s, but I'd assumed I'd be attending alone as usual. Now, 3 months into whatever Elena and I were calling this relationship, the prospect of facing Sarah's questions about my love life filled me with dread. "You look like someone died," Elena observed, finding me staring at the invitation in my kitchen that evening. "Wedding invitation," I said, sliding the card across the counter. "Sarah was my closest friend in medical school. We've kept in touch, but she doesn't know about you. About this." Elena examined the invitation, her expression thoughtful. "About us being together? Or about you being with a woman?" "Both." I slumped against the counter. She knew me when I was married to David. Dating women wasn't exactly on my radar back then. And now it is. I looked at her, this beautiful woman who'd turned my world upside down in the best possible way. Now it's the only thing on my radar that matters. Elena set down the invitation and moved closer. "What if I went with you? As my +1? The suggestion made my pulse quicken with equal parts excitement and terror. As your girlfriend, she said simply. We could tell people we're dating. Not necessarily the full details, but enough to deflect the awkward questions. The word girlfriend sent warmth spreading through my chest. We'd been carefully avoiding labels, but hearing Elena claim that title felt right. You'd pretend to be my girlfriend for a weekend? Who says I'd be pretending? Her smile was gentle but serious. Gabriella, what do you think we've been doing these past 3 months? She was right. We'd been acting like a couple in every way except the official acknowledgement. The realization that I'd been overthinking our undefined status made me laugh. You're absolutely right. God, I'm such an overthinker. It's one of your more endearing qualities, Elena teased, then grew serious. But only if you're comfortable with it. I don't want to push you into anything public before you're ready. I considered the implications. A weekend away together, sharing a hotel room, meeting my oldest friends as a couple. The thought should have terrified me. But instead, I felt a flutter of anticipation. Yes, I said decisively. Yes, I'd love you to come with me. As your girlfriend, she pressed, wanting clarity. As my girlfriend, I confirmed. And saying it aloud felt like claiming something I'd been afraid to want. The following Saturday, we drove to Beverly Hills to find appropriate outfits. Elena insisted we needed to look like a convincing couple, which apparently required coordinated shopping. What about this one? She asked, holding up a navy dress against herself in the boutique mirror. Beautiful, I said. But I was looking at her face, not the dress. Focus, Dr. Reed, she laughed. We need to convince your friends we're madly in love. That shouldn't be difficult, I replied, then blushed at my own boldness. Elena's expression softened. No, it shouldn't. In the dressing room, I tried on a burgundy dress that hugged my figure perfectly. Elena's approval was evident in her expression when I emerged. That's the one, she said, her voice slightly husky. You look incredible. The fitting room was cramped, barely large enough for one person. When Elena leaned in to adjust the dress's neckline, claiming the tag was showing, we found ourselves inches apart. The mirror reflected us both, looking every bit like a couple shopping together. We look good together, she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. We do, I agreed, meeting her eyes in the reflection. The kiss was inevitable, soft and sweet in the cramped space. When we broke apart, I realized I was more excited about this wedding than nervous. Ready for this weekend? Elena asked as we headed to the register. With you? I'm ready for anything, I replied, meaning every word. The saleswoman smiled as she rang up our purchases. You two make a lovely couple, she commented casually. Thank you, Elena replied without hesitation, squeezing my hand. Walking out of the boutique together, matching shopping bags in hand, I felt like we'd crossed some invisible threshold. This weekend would be our first public appearance as a couple, and surprisingly, I couldn't wait. The Canary Hotel in Santa Barbara overlooked the Pacific, its Spanish colonial architecture bathed in afternoon sunlight. Elena handled check-in while I fought butterflies in my stomach. When the desk clerk handed us a single room key, the reality of sharing a bed for an entire weekend hit me fully. Everything okay? Elena asked as we rode the elevator to the 4th floor. Just nervous about seeing everyone, I replied, which was partially true. The other part was being nervous about sleeping next to her for 2 nights without the usual option of retreating to my own space. Our suite was elegantly appointed with a king bed, separate sitting area, and balcony overlooking the harbor. Elena set down our bags while I explored the space, trying to appear casual about the single bed situation. We can figure out sleeping arrangements later, she said gently, clearly reading my mind. No pressure. I'm being ridiculous, aren't I? We've been together for months. You're being human, Elena replied. This is different from spending the night at your house. This feels official, somehow. She was right. This weekend represented a public declaration of our relationship. And despite my growing feelings for her, the magnitude of that step felt overwhelming. What if they don't accept us? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. These people knew me when I was married to David. What if they think this is some midlife crisis? Elena crossed the room and took my hands. Then they're not the friends you thought they were. But I suspect they'll be happy to see you in love. Am I? The question slipped out before I could stop it. In love, I mean. Elena's eyes searched mine. I don't know. Are you? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. The wedding party was gathering in the hotel bar for cocktails before the rehearsal dinner. Time to face the music. Ready to meet my past? I asked Elena as we prepared to leave. Ready to be part of your future? She replied, straightening my necklace with gentle fingers. The hotel bar buzzed with wedding guests, a mix of medical professionals and Sarah's fiancé's law firm colleagues. I spotted Sarah immediately, radiant in a flowing sundress, surrounded by bridesmaids I recognized from old photos. Gabriella! Sarah rushed over, enveloping me in a warm hug. You look amazing, and this must be Elena. Sarah, meet my girlfriend Elena Vasquez, I said, the words flowing more naturally than expected. Elena, Sarah Manning, the bride, and my oldest friend. Elena charmed Sarah effortlessly, asking about wedding preparations and complimenting the venue choice. I watched my friend's face light up as she realized I'd brought someone special. I'm so happy for you, Sarah whispered when Elena stepped away to get drinks. You seem different, lighter. Different how? Like you're finally living for yourself instead of just going through the motions. The rehearsal ceremony was held in the hotel's garden courtyard, overlooking the ocean. Elena and I sat together in the back row, her hand warm in mine, as we watched Sarah and Michael practice their vows. When the officiant spoke about love transcending expectations and finding happiness in unexpected places, I felt Elena squeeze my fingers. The words seemed written for us. Do you think we'll ever... She began quietly, then stopped herself. What? Nothing. Just enjoying the moment, she replied. But I caught the wistful look in her eyes. The reception dinner moved to the hotel's terrace restaurant, our table overlooking the harbor. As the sun set over the Pacific, casting golden light across the water, I found myself relaxing into the evening. Dance with me, Elena said as the hired quartet began playing soft jazz. We moved onto the small dance floor, and I marveled at how natural it felt to be in her arms, surrounded by my oldest friends. No one stared or whispered. If anything, people seemed charmed by us together. See? Elena murmured as we swayed to the music. No one's scandalized by your happiness. Maybe I was overthinking. You never, she teased, then grew serious. Gabriella, whatever happens tomorrow or next week, tonight has been perfect. It has been perfect. You've been perfect. When she kissed me softly on the dance floor, I forgot about everyone watching and kissed her back. Sarah caught my eye from across the terrace and gave me a thumbs up, grinning widely. Later, on our hotel balcony with champagne and the sound of waves below, the evening's success made everything feel possible. Thank you, I said, curled against Elena's side on the wicker love seat. For being exactly who I needed you to be tonight. For making this easy when it could have been terrifying. It was easy because it's real, she replied, kissing the top of my head. Tomorrow's the actual wedding, but tonight feels like our beginning. Morning sunlight streamed through the hotel's sheer curtains, illuminating Elena's dark hair spread across the pillow next to mine. The night had been tender and passionate, our connection deepening beyond anything I'd experienced before. Now, watching her sleep peacefully, I felt a contentment that scared me with its intensity. Good morning, beautiful, she murmured without opening her eyes, somehow sensing I was awake. How did you know? You think very loudly, she teased, finally looking at me with those impossibly dark eyes. What's going on in that brilliant mind? I wanted to say everything, that I loved her, that last night had changed something fundamental inside me, that the thought of returning to Glendale and pretending this was casual felt impossible. Instead, I kissed her forehead softly. Just thinking about today, I said, the wedding, not having second thoughts about us? The opposite, actually. I met her gaze directly. Last night made everything clear for me. Elena's expression grew serious. Clear? How? Before I could answer, room service arrived with the coffee and pastries we'd ordered the night before. We wrapped ourselves in the hotel's plush robes and moved to the balcony, the Pacific sparkling in the morning sun. I've been thinking about what Sarah said yesterday, I began, settling beside her at the small table. About me seeming different, lighter. You do seem happier, Elena agreed, her fingers intertwining with mine across the table. That's because of you, I said simply. These past months, you've helped me discover parts of myself I didn't know existed. Not just about being with a woman, but about being fully alive. Elena's grip on my hand tightened. Gabriella, I love you. The words fell between us like a declaration of independence. I'm in love with you, I said, the confession tumbling out. And pretending this is anything casual is ridiculous. Her smile was radiant, transforming her entire face. I love you too. I have for months, but I was waiting for you to catch up. I'm tired of catching up, I laughed. From now on, I want to be ahead of the curve. We spent the morning in comfortable intimacy, sharing coffee and conversation as the hotel came alive around us. The wedding wasn't until 4, giving us the entire day to exist in this new reality of acknowledged love. During the drive back to Glendale that evening, our hands intertwined over the center console, I felt different than I had on the drive up. The landscape looked the same, but I was seeing it through changed eyes. So, what happens now? Elena asked as familiar neighborhoods came into view. Do we tell people we're officially together? Make this real in Glendale too? It's already real, I replied. But yes, I want everyone to know. I'm tired of hiding the best thing that's ever happened to me. Elena pulled into my driveway and turned off the engine, but neither of us moved to get out. The evening air carried the scent of jasmine from my neighbor's garden, and through my house windows, I could see the life I'd built alone. Will you stay tonight? I asked. Not just tonight, but regularly. I want you in my space, in my life, officially. Are you asking me to move in? She turned to face me, eyebrows raised. The question hung between us, larger than I'd intended. But looking at her in the fading daylight, I realized the answer was obvious. Eventually, yes, I said, if you want to. I know it's fast, but nothing about us has followed conventional timelines. I want to, she replied without hesitation. I've wanted to since that first night we spent together, but I was afraid of pushing too hard. No more pushing, I said, getting out of the car and walking around to meet her. From now on, we move forward together. Standing in my driveway, surrounded by the familiar comfort of my neighborhood, I kissed the woman I loved under the same stars that had witnessed my solitary existence for years. But tonight, everything was different. Welcome home, I whispered against her lips. I have been waiting for home, she replied, and I knew she meant it. I've been waiting for you. Inside my house, Elena moved with the confidence of someone who belonged there. Watching her hang her dress in my closet next to mine, I realized this wasn't just about love or companionship. This was about building a life with someone who understood both my strength and vulnerability. The weekend had changed us from two people exploring connection into partners choosing each other deliberately. As we settled into bed together, no longer guests in neutral territory, but home in our own space, I felt the last of my fears dissolve into anticipation for whatever came next. 1 year later, we returned to the Grand Tower for the annual charity gala where we'd first met. This time, we wore matching rings and moved through the crowd as an established couple, both of us volunteering our professional services for the cause. Full circle, Elena murmured, watching me demonstrate treatment techniques to potential donors at the same tables where we'd first talked. No, I corrected, pulling her close as the evening wound down. This isn't a circle. This is a beginning. The ballroom around us buzzed with the same charity energy that had brought us together. But we were different people now, shaped by love into better versions of ourselves. And this was only the start. The drive back to my apartment felt like crossing into another dimension. Elena navigated the rain-slicked streets with steady hands, but the silence between us crackled with everything we hadn't said in front of colleagues. City lights blurred past my window, and I counted breaths, trying to ground myself in reality. We need a cover story, I said finally, my voice cutting through the quiet. For tonight, for tomorrow, for however long we need to keep this private. Elena glanced at me, her expression thoughtful in the dashboard glow. The Harland-Meridian merger discussion. We spent 20 minutes on the balcony reviewing quarterly projections. Very strategic, very professional. And if Mr. Harland asks for details, you tell him we discuss data integration challenges and cultural alignment. Vague enough to be plausible, specific enough to sound legitimate. Her voice shifted into a perfect imitation of corporate speak. We identified several synergies that warrant further exploration in a more formal setting. I laughed despite the tension. You've done this before, haven't you? She reached across the center console, her hand finding mine. How many times have you created cover stories for things that weren't what they seemed? She was right. In corporate life, cover stories were survival tools. The difference was, this time, the story protected something real instead of hiding something false. Tomorrow's coffee, I said, squeezing her hand. We need to be careful. Public, but not obvious. Professional, but not cold. There's a place downtown, near the courthouse. Lawyers and judges go there. 2 women having coffee could be anything. Networking, mentoring, discussing a case. She paused, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. It's near my apartment, which could be convenient or complicated, depending on how the conversation goes. Depending on whether we actually drink coffee or just pretend to. Exactly. She pulled into my driveway, the engine idling. We need a timeline, Elena said, referring back to the rules we'd already established. Not for us, but for them. For the people watching. When do we coincidentally run into each other at industry events? How often can we have strategic meetings before someone gets suspicious? I turned to face her, the dome light casting shadows across her features. 1 public appearance per month, I said, reciting the rule we'd already agreed upon. 2 at most. Any more looks like pursuit rather than partnership. Alternating departure times, she added. If we're at the same event, one of us leaves 15 minutes before the other. No shared rides, no walking out together. And no social media interaction, I said. No likes, no comments, no tags. We exist in separate digital spheres. Agreed. Her expression grew serious. But we need a private communication channel. Something encrypted. Something just for us. A shared calendar, I suggested. We create a private calendar for client meetings that are actually dates. Encrypted notes, location coordinates instead of addresses. And a signal, she reminded me. 3 circles on the hand means I need 5 minutes of honesty. 1 circle back means I hear you. 2 circles means not now, but soon. No circles means we're in performance mode, she finished. I can work with that. We sat in the dark car, the engine running, neither of us moving to leave. The plan we'd created felt like both armor and prison, protecting us while constraining us. But it also gave us permission to be honest in a world that demanded performance. The timeline, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. No labels until we're both certain. No assumptions, no pressure. We figure this out one day at a time. One day at a time, I agreed. But we figure it out together. She leaned across the center console, her hand cupping my face. Together, she whispered, her lips brushing mine in a kiss that sealed the agreement. When we broke apart, the dome light had timed out, plunging us into darkness. I could hear her breathing, feel the warmth of her hand on my cheek, sense the weight of what we'd just built. Tomorrow, she reminded me, though neither of us moved. Coffee at the courthouse place. Very public, very careful. Tomorrow, I agreed, counting the hours until we could be honest again. The plan was simple. The plan was necessary. The plan might save us both. But as I watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the rain, I knew the truth. Plans couldn't protect us from what was already happening. We were past the point of safe boundaries. We were past the point of professional distance. We were simply past the point of no return. The rules were clear. The timeline was set. The cover story was solid. And none of it mattered because I'd already fallen for the woman I was supposed to be protecting myself from. The transition from balcony intimacy to professional performance felt like stepping through a portal into another dimension. Elena walked back inside first, her posture perfect, her stride confident. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. We both knew I'd follow. I counted to 30, watching the city lights below, then followed. The party continued unchanged. Champagne poured, deals discussed, careers advanced. Mr. Harlan stood near the bar, his attention on the mayor. Elena had positioned herself across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of investors. From a distance, we were simply two colleagues who'd discussed business, but we knew the truth. Mr. Harland approached me near the bar, his expression pleased. "Excellent work tonight, Catherine. I saw you dancing with Elena Vasquez. Building bridges with Meridian could be strategic for us." "Strategic," I repeated, my voice hollow. "She's impressive, isn't she? Sharp mind, excellent instincts. The two of you together could be formidable." He clapped my shoulder, oblivious to the irony. "Keep cultivating that rapport." I smiled, nodded, performed the role of dutiful junior partner. But my gaze kept drifting to Elena, now engaged in conversation near the windows. She glanced up, caught my eye, and the message was clear. This is exhausting. It was. The performance required constant vigilance. Every smile, every gesture, every word had to pass through two filters: professional appropriateness and hidden truth. My face ached from the effort. My mind spun from the dual consciousness of public persona and private reality. The final hour stretched like taffy pulled too thin. I endured conversations about market trends, fiscal projections, quarterly earnings. Elena moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her professional mask flawless. But every time our eyes met across the room, the charge reignited. At 11:30, I caught her subtle signal. 3 fingers brushing her wine glass, slow and deliberate. Our agreed-upon sign: I'm ready to leave. I made my excuses to Mr. Harland, citing an early morning meeting. He waved me off, pleased with my excellent networking. I retrieved my coat from the check room, then texted Elena, "Car in 10. Her reply came immediately. "Already there." The parking garage was empty, our footsteps echoing against concrete walls. Elena waited by my car, her burgundy coat wrapped tight against the December chill. For the first time all night, we were alone, without an audience. "You okay?" she asked as I unlocked the doors, exhausted from performing. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands shaking slightly. "You?" "Same." She buckled her seatbelt, then reached across the center console, her hand finding mine. "But I'm here." The drive passed in comfortable silence, our hands intertwined over the console. City lights blurred past my window, and I counted breaths, trying to ground myself in reality. This was real. She was real. The connection we'd hidden all night now had space to breathe. Elena's thumb traced circles on my palm, the rhythm steady and calming. "We did it," she said softly. "We survived the party." "We did." I squeezed her hand. "Now what?" "Now," she said, her voice low and certain. "We figure out what happens when there's no audience to perform for. When it's just us." I pulled into my driveway, the engine idling. The question hung between us, heavy and unspoken. What happens now? Elena turned to face me, the dome light casting shadows across her features. "Can I come up?" The question was simple. The implications were not. If she came up, we crossed a line we'd been dancing around all night. If she didn't, we maintained the protective boundaries we'd established. I studied her face, the vulnerability in her eyes, the way her hair fell across her forehead. This was the moment of truth, the point where rules met reality, where plans met desire. "Yes," I said, the word feeling like both surrender and victory. "But we take it slow. No expectations, no pressure, just continuing the conversation." "Just conversation," she agreed. But her smile said she knew conversation was only the beginning. We walked to my door together, the December air crisp around us. The key turned in the lock with a soft click, and I stepped across the threshold into a future I hadn't planned but suddenly couldn't imagine living without. The secret we'd carried all night, the truth of what we were to each other, now had space to grow. And as Elena followed me inside, her hand warm in mine, I knew this was only the beginning of everything. The drive back to my apartment felt like crossing into another dimension. Elena navigated the rain-slicked streets with steady hands, but the silence between us crackled with everything we hadn't said in front of colleagues. City lights blurred past my window, and I counted breaths, trying to ground myself in reality. "Can I come up?" she asked as I pulled into my driveway, the engine idling. The question was simple. The implications were not. If she came up, we crossed a line we'd been dancing around all night. If she didn't, we maintained the protective boundaries we'd established. "Yes," I said, the word feeling like both surrender and victory. "But we take it slow. Tea on the couch, no expectations, just conversation." Tea sounds perfect. Inside, the house felt different with her in it. Smaller, somehow, more intimate. We settled on the couch with mugs of chamomile, the steam creating a barrier between us that felt both protective and fragile. By 2 a.m., we were talking about everything and nothing. Favorite childhood cereals, the books that changed us, the songs that made us cry. We were still fully clothed, sitting cross-legged on opposite ends of the couch, but the distance felt arbitrary. Every word she spoke drew me closer, even without movement. "Tonight," Elena confirmed as she left at dawn, squeezing my hand. "Dinner, your place. I'll bring wine." "Tonight," I repeated, already unable to imagine separation. I stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching her taillights disappear and feeling the absence of her like a physical ache. Her hand in mine as we walk into the office, the secret electrifying the mundane. Colleagues nod good morning, unaware that the woman beside me knows the exact way I take my coffee, the sound I make when I'm truly happy, the pattern of my breathing when I'm lying. We were never just colleagues. We were always this. Two people who found each other in the space between professional masks, who built a life on stolen moments and honest confessions, who learned that the biggest risk isn't losing your career, but losing yourself by pretending you don't feel what you feel. If this story resonated, subscribe to see where their journey leads next.